You strike two rocks together and nothing happens. You try again. Still nothing. Somewhere behind you, the sun is already dropping toward the horizon, and the cold is coming whether you're ready or not. For most of human history, this was the actual stakes. Not a lighter in your pocket, not a switch on a wall. Just your own hands, some wood, and the growing dark. So what actually happened the day someone first realized two sticks could make fire, when everyone around them had only ever trusted stone? To answer that, you have to go back further than you think. Long before anyone deliberately made fire, humans were already living with it. Lightning strikes started wildfires. Volcanic vents smoldered for days. Early humans learned to scavenge these fires, to carry a burning branch back to camp and guard it like a fragile animal that had to be fed constantly with fuel or it would simply die. Keeping a fire alive was already a full-time job. Losing it meant walking for miles, sometimes days, hoping to find another one burning somewhere in the landscape. You didn't make fire. You kept it. You begged it to stay. The primatologist Richard Wrangham has spent decades studying what happened to the human body once fire entered the picture. His research argues that cooked food changed everything about the human body. Smaller guts, bigger brains, more energy freed up for a body that no longer had to spend all day digesting raw plants and tough meat. Fire didn't just keep you warm, it rewired what a human being even was. But rewiring your biology around something you can't reliably start is a strange kind of dependence. Imagine needing a technology for your own survival that you have no ability to create. That's the gap early humans lived inside for an enormous stretch of time. Using fire constantly, controlling it skillfully once they had it, and still being completely at the mercy of nature for the spark itself. Archaeological evidence backs this up. At Wonderwork Cave in South Africa, researcher Francesco Berna and colleagues identified burned bone fragments and ash residues dating back roughly 1 million years. Some of the earliest solid evidence of controlled fire use. Controlled, not created. There's a difference, and it's the difference this whole story hinges on. So somewhere in that long stretch of controlling but not creating, someone changed the rules. Picture it. Not a lightning bolt, not a legend, just someone, probably doing something completely unrelated to fire at all. Maybe they were making a tool. Drilling a hole into wood with a pointed stick, spinning it fast between their palms, over and over, the way you'd twist a stick to bore through bark. Their palms burn a little. Their arms ache, and then they notice something strange collecting at the base of the hole. A dark powder, warm to the touch. They keep going. The powder gets darker, hotter, and then a wisp of smoke rises from wood that was never near a flame. No lightning struck it. No wildfire touched it. Friction alone did this. That single moment splits history into a before and an after. Before, fire was something you found. After, fire was something you made. Think about what that discovery actually required cognitively. You'd need to notice a subtle physical effect, heat building from friction, and connect it to an entirely different domain, ignition, that your brain had never associated with drilling a hole. That's not an accident anyone could stumble into once. It likely happened slowly, through repeated near misses, false starts, wood that smoked but never caught, technique refined over and over by trial. And once it worked even one time, it had to be repeated deliberately for anyone to trust it. A single lucky spark proves nothing. It's the 10th time, the 100th time, that turns a fluke into a method. Ethnographic and experimental archaeology gives you a good picture of what these early friction methods likely looked like, because versions of them survived into recent history among hunter-gatherer groups worldwide. The hand drill, a straight stick spun rapidly between the palms against a wooden base. The bow drill, the same spinning motion, but powered by a small bow, letting the operator apply steady pressure with far less exhausting effort. The fire plow, a stick rubbed back and forth along a groove instead of spun in a circle, building a small pile of hot wood dust through friction alone. Each method demanded the same 3 things in different ratios: the right wood, dry enough to catch but soft enough to grind into powder, sustained physical effort, often to the point of blistered hands, and patience, because the wisp of smoke you're hoping for might not show up for minutes of steady work. Friction wasn't the only path humans eventually found to fire on demand. Later, in some regions, people discovered that striking certain stones together, flint against pyrite or a similar iron-bearing rock, threw off a spark hot enough to catch in fine, dry tinder. That method looks closer to the rock striking you tried at the very start of this story, except it worked, because the rocks weren't ordinary rocks. They were specific minerals with specific properties, and finding them required already knowing what to look for. Friction fire, by contrast, needed no rare mineral at all. Any two pieces of the right wood, found almost anywhere, could do it. That's likely part of why the friction method may have come first, or at least why it could have been discovered independently by more groups in more places. You didn't need a lucky mineral deposit nearby. You needed wood, effort, and enough curiosity to keep drilling after the first 10 failures. Now picture the moment it actually catches. The dust glows orange at its center. You cup your hands around it, add the driest tinder you have, and blow, gently, the way you'd coax a whisper into a shout. And then, fire. Not found. Not carried for miles. Made, right here, from nothing but wood and effort and your own hands. What do you think the people around that first fire maker actually felt? Not simple joy. Try fear mixed with awe. This person had just done something that looked, to everyone watching, indistinguishable from magic. They hadn't found a burning branch. They had pulled flame out of stillness, out of two unremarkable sticks that looked exactly like every other stick lying on the ground. That's the part worth sitting with. The materials were never special. Sticks were everywhere. What changed wasn't access to some rare resource. What changed was a person noticing a pattern nobody else had connected and refusing to let it go until it worked reliably enough to teach someone else. And it did get taught. Once a group had someone who could make fire on demand, that knowledge became one of the most valuable things a person could carry. It meant a family no longer needed to keep a flame alive through every storm, every river crossing, every long migration. It meant a lost fire was an inconvenience instead of a catastrophe. The dependence that had defined human life for hundreds of thousands of years quietly ended, replaced by a skill anyone could learn if someone was willing to teach it and they were willing to practice through the blisters. Think about what that teaching moment must have looked like, generation after generation. A child watching an adult's palms spin a stick raw and red. A first attempt that produces nothing but sweat and frustration. An adult correcting the angle, the pressure, the choice of wood, patiently, because getting it wrong wasn't dangerous, just slow. Skills like this don't spread through a single genius moment retold as legend. They spread through thousands of small, unglamorous repetitions, parent to child, camp to camp, until a technique that once looked like magic became something every capable adult in a community was simply expected to know. That shift, from one person's discovery to a whole community's baseline skill, is arguably the more important part of the story. A discovery that only one person can do dies with that person. A discovery that gets taught survives migrations, generations, entire climate shifts. The people who first learned to drill fire from wood weren't just clever. They were willing to fail in front of each other long enough to turn a fragile trick into a durable inheritance. Here's the strange part. You still carry a version of that same moment today, even if you've never once made fire from friction. Every time you flick a lighter, you're relying on a chain of technology built directly on top of that first discovery. Friction and pressure refined over tens of thousands of years until it became small enough to fit in your pocket and reliable enough that you never think about it at all. You don't feel awe when you light a candle. You don't feel fear. You feel nothing, because the thing that once looked like magic has been so thoroughly domesticated that it no longer registers as remarkable. That's what a good discovery eventually becomes. Not something people marvel at, but something people forget they ever needed to marvel at in the first place. And maybe that's the real answer to the question you started with. What happened the day someone first realized two sticks could make fire? Something ordinary became something the entire species would depend on forever, and the person who found it probably had no idea they'd just ended one era of human life and started another. You strike two rocks together and nothing happens. Somewhere, a long time ago, someone stopped striking rocks, picked up two plain sticks instead, and changed what it meant to be human.